I snagged the top spot for Mike, and the next day his crush confessed her feelings to me. With a mischievous, alluring face, she asked, "Want to join my world and be a slacker with me?" Of course, I said yes right away and kissed those lips I had long desired. Later, my grades slowly dropped to the bottom, and I got to know every bit of Becky's body. On the day the college entrance exams ended, she kissed me first for the first time and asked me to go to a junior college with her. I knew that was her ultimate goal for getting close to me, but this time, I just waved my acceptance letter from a prestigious university. Had a blast with you this year, but my future's too important. I can't join you. I overheard Becky and Mike talking right after I estimated my exam score, 720. That's as high as last year's top student in our province. Just as I was feeling relieved, I heard Mike's familiar voice behind the door. "Becky, don't forget, you haven't won our bet yet. To win, you need to get David to junior college with you." Becky wasn't fazed. "Can't you see his scores now? Over 400 points. He's not getting into any decent school." Mike argued back, "With his foundation, what if he overperforms? No matter how well he does, getting him into a school is my call. Isn't it?" Hearing this, others around, who usually called me brother with enthusiasm, burst into mocking laughter. With how David sucks up to Becky, he's be thrilled to pick trash with her, let alone go to junior college. Exactly. Everyone at our school knows he dropped from top to bottom for her. What else could he pull off? And then more laughter. I heard every word and wasn't bothered. To win over a beauty like Becky, pretending a bit and scoring low was no big deal. Behind the scenes, Becky was definitely paying me back in full, in her own way. The thought of Becky on that bed, so different from her usual cool self, brought me back to reality only when the next person teased me. He winked at Mike. "If David knew all this was your revenge, he'd probably hate your guts." Mike just rolled his eyes in annoyance. "Isn't that obvious?" But they got it wrong this time. I didn't hate Mike at all. In fact, I was thankful. Mike gave a plain-looking guy like me the chance to be with someone like Becky. I always knew my skills lay in studying. Other people struggled to memorize, while I could recite pages backwards after reading them once. I got complex topics quickly, tackled tough problems effortlessly. But I also knew standing out too much in a dull town wasn't always good. So, for the scholarship, I'd stay just slightly ahead of Mike by 5 points or less. Except once. That was the day before a monthly exam when I saw Becky and Mike kissing outside the classroom. They looked like a scene ripped from a manga, except I felt intense jealousy. During the math test, I couldn't help but ace an extra question. In the physics test, I answered all the multiple-choice questions correctly out of spite. That time, I scored 35 points more than Mike. I regretted my impulsiveness for days afterward, until Becky approached me on the third day. Wearing a bright yellow number 23 jersey, she jogged over with a face full of apology. "I'm sorry, classmate. I accidentally hit you with my ball. Are you okay? Should I take you to the nurse?" I knew the ball wasn't thrown by accident. Just like I knew Becky approached me because of Mike, either to vent for him or just a bet. Whatever the reason, it was my one chance to get close to Becky. Yeah, I wanted Becky from the moment I saw her. Her timing was impeccable. Before she showed up, I had only one goal: to escape by getting into the best university. Even when my dad would come home drunk and beat me, or when my mom tried marrying me off at 13 for dowry money, my focus was razor sharp. I could never lose sight of that escape. Later, when any test, the kind others struggled with, I could effortlessly aim for perfection, I knew the best universities were within my reach. All that remained was to ace the college entrance exams the next year. Looking back at my 17 gray-toned years, all I saw were gloomy childhood and endless studying. Then I saw that screen filled with Becky's pretty and playful demeanor, and thought, how nice it would be to have a teenage romance at 17. And then Becky appeared. She was even younger and prettier in person. As her jersey clung to her narrow waist while she moved, it pinpointed my deepest desires. I wanted her even if I had no chance otherwise. Like I've said, I'm only good at studying. Other than that, I'm mundane average. The type Becky would never notice, always being the center of attention. But then, Mike brought her right to me. I played it cool, gladly accepting Becky's every intentional advance. In the bustling cafeteria and the deserted gymnasium, Becky always managed to run into me. She stopped for me longer and her gaze became increasingly intense. Then one day, she pushed through the crowd towards me. "David, I like you. Do you want to be with me?" When she fell into my arms, I pretended not to see the disdain she tried to hide behind her long eyelashes. I just closed my eyes, taking in the pleasant scent of her mixed with licorice and laundry detergent. Books hold treasures, and yes, in books you find beauty. The ancients didn't deceive me, but I knew that this beautiful gem would only be mine for a short while. Maybe she'd end this revenge game quickly, dumping me to get back at some guy she had her eyes on. Or maybe she'd play longer, pulling me deeper before calling it off. What I didn't expect was her true intention to break down my golden house. The first time that realization hit was at the internet cafe. I was quietly working on some exercises next to Becky's computer. The woman, who was usually so focused on her games, suddenly yanked off her headphones with irritation. I noticed her movement, looked up, and asked what was wrong. She stared at me for a while before speaking with a steady gaze. "I don't like you doing exercises when I'm around. I'm more than willing to accommodate a beauty, so I tossed the papers aside. Then I won't do them." She kept staring at me, her expression turning colder. "I feel like there's a huge gap between us." I realized something and my heart raced. "What would you prefer?" She leaned in close, nearly touching my forehead with hers, in a playful tone. "Can't you just be like me, a bad student?" The blue light from the screen reflected silently in her glass-like eyes. Like a siren luring prey, she invited, "David, come into my world, and be with me forever." In that moment I was ecstatic. So that's what she wanted. And Mike wanted this too. I pulled her closer, brushing her lips that I'd coveted for so long. "Kiss me." I knew Becky didn't like me, nor my touch. Before, I didn't dare make any bold moves, fearing Becky would call off the game. But now, she wanted something from me, so a trade was reasonable and necessary, right? When her soft, cool lips finally hesitated before touching mine, I silently thanked my younger self for all those years buried in books. "David, heaven truly rewards you." I started to neglect books and study, recklessly indulging in time with Becky and letting my standards slip. With that, my rankings began to drop, and the first slip was from first place to Mike. When the teacher announced Mike's name as rank 1, he was ecstatic. He grabbed the report, looked it over repeatedly, then buried his face in his arms, unable to hold back tears. I didn't miss the triumphant glance he shot my way, but I pretended not to notice. I quietly thought about claiming my reward. Sure enough, Becky was thrilled that day too. She ran to me from afar, the hem of her uniform skirt catching the breeze and sunlight. Maybe that's why I felt warmth envelop me when she hugged me. I asked why she was so happy. She smiled and said she'd just won a great match. I smiled too, pretending not to know that such a match never existed, and placed a room key into her palm. "It's my 18th birthday today. Celebrate with me, okay?" I thought that night I'd be at a rare disadvantage. Surprisingly, despite her allure, Becky had no experience. Her knowledge from Japanese educational videos was no match for my comprehensive skills honed by textbooks, strong structural logic, and spatial imagination. Watching her beneath me, her eyes tinted red yet stubbornly silent, I realized the true meaning of learning by doing. I hadn't mastered the limits, and the next day's basketball game saw Becky falter mid-air. Men often fantasize that a woman will always remember her first man. I, however, learned that for a woman, emotions are inseparable from sex and love. She may have felt alive in bed and savored new pleasures, but off the bed, Becky became unknowingly attached to me. Mike quickly sensed the subtle shift between Becky and me. He grew anxious. After another long night with Becky, Mike cornered me in the bathroom. He glared at the hickeys peeking from my collar, anger blazing in his eyes, but he bitterly held back and said, "You and Becky, don't you ever get bored of doing the same thing over and over?" I carefully fixed my collar to hide the marks before looking at him with a smile. If I shouldn't focus my energy on my girlfriend, then where should I? I stretched the question. On studies? That day, Mike retreated. I still remember the expression on his face then. Beyond the surging anger, there was a promise of retribution. Watch your back. And today, it's probably the day he planned to get back at me. Extras quickly got the hint and cleared out, leaving space for the two leads. Through the door crack, I saw Mike settle into Becky's arms, eagerly wrapping his arms around her neck. Ian, it's been so long since we've been close. Once she's done with the applications, dump her and come back to me. You promised. You said if I helped you destroy that scumbag, you'd be mine. With that, he leaned in to kiss Becky, but she turned away. Even she didn't fully understand why. A moment of confusion passed over her eyes after avoiding the kiss. I leaned against the wall, unable to help but chuckle silently. Becky's always been naturally flirtatious. Even when she was with Mike, she was out and about, flirting without a care. But on the day she confessed to me, I told her, I'll be your boyfriend, but there can't be anyone else. Of course, Becky readily agreed. Yet she continued kissing cute classmates on the track, kept having handsome guys on the back of her motorcycle. I quietly treated what I'd said like it was nothing, covering my eyes, pretending I was blind, covering my ears, pretending I was deaf. I had no leverage until one day at the internet cafe. I never brought up her being with other people again. But whenever she got cozy with another guy, I just grabbed my backpack and head to the study room, silently climbing a page in the next exam rankings. Eventually, Becky gave in. She started actively avoiding every guy around her, even Mike, who she grew up with. In return, I comfortably stayed at the bottom of the class rankings. Becky's most beautiful, vibrant years were finally all mine. I was satisfied. Mike, though, couldn't hold it together anymore. You avoid me in front of David, fine. But when he's not around, you're acting like you're faithful to him. Becky, you can't seriously be into this geek. Becky's face shifted, pushing him away impatiently. Weren't you the one who made that stupid bet? If I'm being faithful, how do you think you got all those top scores? Now that you've got what you want, you're turning on me? I never asked you to go that far. Mike worked up, grabbed her collar. Where did you guys go after finals? What did you do with him? Tell me, what did we do? Obviously, adult stuff. Started at sunset, ended at sunrise. I knew why Becky suddenly became clingy, and I was happy to play along in our final symphony. It had been half a month since finals, and I barely found time to estimate my scores. Becky would never say these things aloud. She just stood silently, fiddling with a spent cigarette. Mike stomped his foot in frustration, raised his hand like he was going to hit her, then settled for angrily grabbing her neck and kissing her. This time, Becky didn't pull away. I held on to the windowsill, counting silently in my head. Becky loved deep kisses. She liked to start by gently biting at the edge of your lips, nibbling like a rodent until you were squirming, only then forcing your jaw open, taking over until you both ran out of air. It took a full 2 minutes. My fingers tapped slowly. When their lips finally parted, I pushed the door open. At that moment, I was ready for a classic caught in the act scene. But as the door swung open, I suddenly thought, what's the point of all the drama? Better to jump straight to the main event. I switched to a surprised expression, looking at the flustered pair in front of me. Why is it just you two? Weren't the others supposed to be here for score checks? Today was results day. Usually, everyone would check scores at home, then send screenshots to school for a tally. But this year, the principal insisted we all come to school to find out together. This was Mike's idea, of course. First, Mike had a self-estimated score of 656, the highest in the history of this under-resource county school. She needed us as her cheering audience for this high point in her life. Second, she was eager to see me, her long-time competition, finally dragged into the mud and crushed underfoot. Becky's panicked expression started to fade when she heard my question. She was about to respond, but I changed the subject. By the way, why are your lips so red? Ate something bad? Even without the whole stage play, isn't it fair to trip up the cheating trash a bit? Becky froze. Before she could come up with a lie, the sound of shuffling footsteps came from the door. Moments later, the principal entered with a crowd. Place the camera here. Have you got the live feed ready? Check the sound equipment too. Watching the chaos unfold, I couldn't help but curl a smile. Seems like she wants her daughter's glory captured and broadcasted for everyone. Well, since the principal set the stage, I might as well finish this show. The principal's interruption cut off my delicate conversation with Becky. She exhaled in relief and quickly pulled me toward a computer. Almost 9. Let's find a spot quickly. I subtly dodged her hand. Sure. As 9 o'clock approached, students piled in. The first ones to grab computers were sweating bullets over the button for their results. Those waiting were antsy, itching to press it themselves. Soon, the cramped computer room erupted in gasps. I broke 600. Mom, look, your son can make it to a top-tier college. No way. Did they enter my score wrong? Only 68 in physics. As other scores popped up, Mike's page was stuck loading. She almost swore out loud but caught herself when she saw cameras aimed her way. Finally, after another refresh, her scores appeared. Mike's eyes widened, scanning each line. 660. I scored for more than I thought. Dad, I got into Fudan. She jumped out of her seat, hugging the principal whose face was also flushed with excitement. People watching the live stream probably felt that connection, too. The comments quickly filled up with congratulations. Congrats to this guy for acing the exam and opening a new chapter in life. In this place where educational resources aren't great, getting such scores is a huge deal. Our buddy has every right to be proud. Mike was already in tears from happiness, thanking everyone in the chat as he wiped his eyes and bowed. His gaze unexpectedly landed on me. The moment our eyes met, he lit up with a grin. He couldn't wait to point me out to the chat. You guys don't know, do you? Actually, I wasn't always the top student here. He stretched out his words on purpose. That title belonged to David here. He was top of the class for a whole year. The comments immediately chimed in, urging, well, get him to check his scores already. Let's see how a top student measures up. Seeing this, Mike was absolutely thrilled but managed to show a regretful expression. But then he got caught up in a relationship. His grades really dropped. Now even getting 400 points is tough for him. The chat scrolled faster than ever. Not mocking, but more with a tone of regret and concern. Kid, when you grow up, you'll realize how silly it is to let love affect your studies. What a shame for a former top student. Yeah, I wish I had taken high school more seriously. All my old pals went to good schools and got good jobs, and here I am. If I had another shot, I'd go all out, no regrets. But only those who've been through it can understand. Kid, don't worry, it's never too late to try, especially at 18. Cross this hurdle and you'll have a fresh start. These words weren't what Mike wanted to hear. His expression fell a bit, but he tried to smile again and urged me. Yeah, it's never too late. So come on, David, check your scores. Let's see what new journey you'll start post-exams. Okay? Next to me, Becky had already checked her scores. She got an exact 400. Looking at my hesitation, she, whether genuine or not, comforted me. David, don't worry. Your scores have always been a bit higher than mine. I got 400, so you'll probably get 400 plus. We'll apply for a vocational college together. We'll still be together. So, she wants to tie me to her in a vocational college for 4 years of embarrassing servitude. Real nice move from both these two. Under Mike's signal, every camera in the room zoomed in on me. Everyone, including the over 50,000 viewers in the live stream, focused their eyes on my score page. David, come on, everyone's waiting, Mike urged, growing impatient. I chuckled, all right then. I reached for the mouse. The moment the screen refreshed, Mike's smug expression froze. He screamed, what is this? No way. Dad, call the IT guy. The system's broken. Call him now. But no one cared about his outburst. The blank scores and a single line of text in black appeared vividly on the live screen. The chat paused for like a second, then exploded with comments. Holy crap! I didn't read it wrong, did I? Blank scores. Top 50 in the province. It's a special case. Good thing I randomly clicked on this. Am I witnessing the birth of a top scorer? You're dreaming, though top 50 is impressive, but to be the top one. Only one in a province. Too slim a chance. The next second, I got a notification on my phone. Hello, David. I'm from the W Province University admissions team. Congratulations on your excellent exam results. Will arrive today at 2 p.m. The chat froze for another 2 seconds. No way. The school's contacting him already? Is this the top scorer? Definitely the top scorer, folks. Back off, everyone. Stop wasting time. Hey, buddy. Share the good luck. My son could use some. Sharing good luck +1. Sharing good luck +1008611. Becky couldn't believe her eyes. Her gaze lost its focus with the constant shock, until Mike, not able to handle reality, started screaming wildly, making her snap out of it. But before she could say a word, she got pushed out of the crowd by a swarm of reporters. Some random person like her can't compare to the only provincial top scorer ever. Forget about them. Even the principal and his daughter, the ones who invited all these reporters, were shouting their lungs out, but no one spared them a glance. Mike was left fuming with rage. The live stream hit a record high of over 1 million viewers. As countless clips went viral, my name became the talk of the nation. People were fascinated by the drama. The curiosity over whether I was truly the top scorer reached its peak, with even betting pools opening on if a vocational college guy could snag the top spot, drawing over a 7-figure crowd. Until, 3 days later, my exam scores were revealed. A raw score of 726, smashing the W Province's science top scorer record. The internet went wild. Not even fantasy stories dare write it like this. Witnessing the birth of a genius. That night, official media reposted the clip of my score reveal with the caption. They say it's hard for the less privileged to rise. Yet here stands a young man defying the odds and taking flight. Meanwhile, folks rewatching the stream keenly noticed the weird vibe between me, Becky, and Mike. Finally given the chance, students from our school jumped at the opportunity to spill the tea. I'm a high school student, and I've got some juicy news. Turns out Becky used to be Mike's girlfriend. But then Mike got mad because David took his first place in class. So, Mike had Becky, who's good-looking but not that bright, try to bring David down by getting him to skip classes, drink, and party. Basically, he wanted to ruin David. But guess what? David is a real genius. He pretended to be a slacker and purposely did poorly on purpose just to show those two. In reality, he was waiting to blow them away with his college entrance exam results. And boy, did he. Everyone saw Mike lose it during his live stream. So, this is about a top student seeing through the schemes of a fake friend and getting revenge while handling a backstabber beautifully. Then he goes on to get into Tsinghua University. Something even fiction writers wouldn't dare to write. As I was enjoying reading this post, Becky called me. Ever since the scores came out, she's been calling nonstop. But I'm too busy managing my social media accounts. This kind of attention doesn't last forever, so I need to make the most of it. Life's not been easy, and I've got a lot to plan for. So, I started offering online tutoring and put together my study notes and methods from 2 years of high school into a guide for sale. And once I released it, it really took off. Many students thanked me in the comments, saying it gave them direction in their studies and urged me to share more content. The sales kept climbing, and when they hit the tens of thousands with revenue in the millions, I looked in the mirror and finally relaxed. I laid the first brick for my future and carved a path towards a brighter outlook for myself. When Becky called again, I almost ignored it like before. But she sent some texts too. It's my birthday today. Can you come see me? I've sent you a local delivery. I'll wait for you until you come. The doorbell rang with her package. It was a room key, identical to the one I gave her a year ago. Funny how the story seems to repeat, just with our roles swapped. The door to room 401 wasn't shut tight. When I walked in, Becky was there waiting and threw her arms around me. Her grip was so tight, and I could feel the warmth from the tears dropping on my neck. I don't care if you lied to me. I don't care if you're smart or not. I just want to be with you. I'll go wherever you go. Let's always be together, okay? She looked at me, her tears making her eyes sparkle. So beautiful. I reached out, stroking her hair gently, but my words were cold. Wouldn't Mike be upset? You lost the bet, Becky. The color drained from her face. So you did hear. She held my face, trembling. I didn't know you back then, nor did I understand you. That's why I agreed to the bet with Mike. But I regretted it soon after. I like you, David. Really. Can we just let the past be the past and start over? Her eyes were full of hope that made it hard to say no. But I'm David. I'm tough. So I quietly said, "Did you hear, Mike?" Becky was stunned. Then she noticed my phone in call mode with Mike. Mike's voice came through, filled with hate and resentment. "David, think you beat me? Don't get cocky. Even if you got into college, I have ways to crush you. And Becky, did you think you had a chance with him? He knew the plan all along and used you as a tool for revenge. You're nothing more than a toy he's tossing away." Becky threw the phone, and there was silence. She was shaking from fear and anger, unable to speak. After a while, she suddenly kissed me, her hands pulling at my shirt. I didn't pull away or stop her. She'd always used charm to pull me away from my studies when I saw her with other guys, convincing me like this. In Becky's mind, nothing couldn't be solved with a night together. But Becky, how could you be so naive? Her breathing got heavier as my clothes got pulled down. Then it all stopped. When Becky kissed a certain spot on my chest, she pulled back as if burned. "What happened to you?" I smiled, pointing at the ugly scar. "Here? It's from when your friend burned me with a candle. And here," I gestured at a carved word. They thought I couldn't reach what I didn't deserve, so they used a compass to carve cheap on my chest, reminding me of my worthlessness. Even though Becky and I had been together so many times, thanks to the darkness, this was the first time she saw my scars. Scars given by her friends. She was blank, ready to get up, but I held her, guiding her trembling hand to my waist. And here, there, a patch of missing skin revealed some angry-looking veins below. He let his dog bite me, bit and pulled. Said it so I would remember the pain and learn to behave. Becky's voice started to tremble. "Why do this?" "Same reason you got close to me." I looked down at her, stroking her flawless face. "Becky, have you ever thought about why Mike, the principal's son, went through all the trouble to involve you? Because every other way was blocked by me. I've been bullied by Mike for ages, ever since I got first place as a freshman. He cornered me in the bathroom, slapping my face with used toilet paper. I was top of the class for 3 years in middle school. Then you come and take it from me. Then he shoved that disgusting thing into my mouth. Rough. First time topping the ranks. Huh? Let's make it memorable. Swallow it. Spit it and I'll wreck your mouth." But I wasn't the kind to suffer silently. I told a teacher. They took me to the principal's office after a long silence. The principal, in his fancy suit, frowned at me and said, "David, my son can be unruly. But didn't you take something from him too? We all should self-reflect and mind our place, right?" That's when I knew I couldn't keep being first in my class. My scholarship was my only way to pay tuition since my parents kicked me out for not marrying the man they picked. With no scholarship, I scrambled for tuition. I got a job at a small restaurant after evening study, helping the boss serve and do the dishes. The lady owner was kind. She'd let me nap on the bench when it was slow and made sure I ate enough, worried I was too skinny. Then someone who always praised my work reported her for hiring underage workers. She was fined heavily and her license was revoked. I chuckled bitterly. See, life's tough on the poor. So I spent a whole night by the dumpster thinking it over. I had to come first in class. I needed to keep studying. Better to endure Mike's beatings than to give up on life. But guess what? Mike got bored of hitting me. His dad said, "Just expel him for something. Get rid of that eyesore." After all those years struggling for a way out, the powerful cut it off just like that. But I wouldn't give up. I had to push Mike to hit me again. I looked at my clenched fists. The story about the monthly exam was a lie I made up for Becky. I was obsessed with her looks, but they meant nothing compared to my future. I intentionally scored much higher than Mike in that monthly exam, not for Becky, but because, sure enough, he was furious and cornered me again in that dark alley. He favored that spot. Few people, lots of freedom for him and his dog. The echoes of my screams must have been thrilling for him. That day I was hurt real bad. Crawled out bleeding everywhere. But I had found my path. I showed Becky a pitch-black SD card in my hand. The dash cam at the alley caught Mike abusing me. I told Mike, try me again, expel me, and this video goes online everywhere. He thought I was nuts, saying the video showed me stripped, crawling like a dog. Would I dare post it? Risk ruining myself? I laughed at him, saying, Mike, I can stay in the mud. Can you? Of course, he couldn't. But he wouldn't let it go. So he sent you to me instead. Becky shook her head in disbelief. I didn't know any of this. I nodded. I knew the bullying had nothing to do with you. Otherwise, sleeping with your bully would be disgusting, right? Her eyes lit up briefly. Then I cut her off, not letting her fantasize. But helping a bully is the same kind of vile. Ignoring her pale face, I spoke slowly and clearly. So why were you just angry? Mike was right. I wanted revenge. Why should the bullied suffer while the bully lives in ease? I'm taking everything he cares about, status, love, future. I'll put him in jail, make him remember every hit, every scar he left on me. It's karma, justice. And you're just one tool in that revenge. Becky staggered, finally asking, did you ever like me? Of course not. I liked your face, your body. Never liked you as a person. Not one bit. Not ever. As I turned to leave, I heard a thud behind me. Becky had fallen to the floor. I didn't hesitate, locked the door behind me. By now, Mike was probably on his way to the police station. Before heading to Becky's, I went to the police station to file a report. I handed in the video as evidence and got my injuries checked at the hospital. Next, I'm gonna press charges. I'm gonna find the best lawyer to make sure the demon gets what he deserves. Something was cutting into my hand. I looked down and realized I was holding a fist so tight that the SD card had sliced into my palm. Blood dripped onto the black SD card, washing away its color. Just like that night. It was pouring that night. Mike had stormed off after his fit, and I was left there, bloody, waiting by the car. After hearing me out, the car owner looked sorry for me and said, I'm sorry for what you're going through, but around here the principal has way too much power. I can't risk it, sorry. I didn't push. I just turned and left. But the next day, that same car owner caught me on the way home from school, handing me this SD card. Seeing my still beaten up self, he awkwardly wiped a tear away and choked out, I have a son too. No father could stand by after seeing that. I didn't tell him that. The dark alley had 3 exits. That night, each exit had a car parked by it. I opted for the 3rd exit, between a black BMW and a gray Volvo, a car covered in pink crystal Barbie decals. While Mike was attacking me, I fought to get myself in the view of that car's dash cam. See, how bad am I calculating against an innocent, kind-hearted father? But when life doesn't favor you, you gotta grasp every possible chance with all you got. I had no choice. When I walked out of the hotel, the wind calmed, and the rain stopped. The sun finally broke through the clouds, shining equally on everyone, including me. I blinked. David, if life no longer throws storms at you, would you choose to be a good person? I've trudged through the ordinary world, and now I want to see what it's like in the world full of brilliance and elites. Those 3 years my parents vanished from my life, they popped back up after seeing the news. They came saying they missed me a lot. I responded by turning and running away, blocking and deleting them immediately. They got mad, lost it completely. You think we wanted you? You're the unwanted child in this house and this world. Nobody welcomes you. You're just a mistake. You should be grateful we didn't cut you loose and actually raised you. They threatened, saying if I didn't pay them support, they'd go to the media, exposing how I hit it big and then ditched my poor family, leaving me with my reputation torn to shreds. I said I'll just go on my huge social media account every day and tell everyone how poor the family is, even needing marriage money, planning to sell me off for my sister's wedding. Plus, I'd spill about my brother's drug habit and my other brother's gambling debt. Make sure their shame drags my future down with it. Then the world finally went quiet. That day, I sang happily all the way. I'm David, and I'm not redundant. In my sophomore year, I got invited to give a speech at the first class of the semester. I prepared this speech with more heart than ever before because I knew, in front of the cameras, there might be countless kids stuck in the mud, just like I once was. That day, I wore my finest clothes and showed myself with confidence. I wanted them to see what it looks like to break free. I wanted to plant a seed in their hearts. At the end of the speech, I spread my arms towards the camera. If you're stuck in the mire, if everything around you is dragging you down, remember to cut away the thorns to make your raft. Pile up the burdens to become your stepping stones. Only you can pull yourself from the swamp, to see the open fields, chase the stars, head toward the horizon. I'm going ahead, waiting for you all on this path. After stepping off the stage, a junior who was also a guest at the event called out to me. We're planning to grab dinner together after the program. Want to join us? I was about to say sure, but then I spotted a familiar face in the crowd. She turned to leave when our eyes met, but I stopped her. Wait, we'd been apart since that time at the hotel over a year ago. Becky's face was as pretty as ever, but her spirit seemed dampened. She clutched the hem of her shirt, looking a bit tense. I didn't want to bother you, just wanted to see you from a distance. Having said that, she really stared at me, for what felt like ages, like she wanted to capture this moment to hold on to during long, lonely times ahead. Finally, she looked away with a self-deprecating smile. At first, I thought as time passes, even the strongest feelings would fade, and maybe you and I could have another chance. But watching you grow brighter, seeing your world expand, I finally understood. You're a bird meant to soar, and someone like me, I'm not worth you turning back for. I wasn't moved by her poetic sentiments, and I responded with a nod, handing over a bank card. Inside was $50,000. It's what I spent while we were together. After we got together, I accepted her support without hesitation. She covered my tuition, living expenses, and even trips and shopping. Back then, many said I was shameless using her generosity. But so what? I didn't have to scrimp and save. I didn't have to tread carefully. My youth brightened early at 18. Why wouldn't I take it? Becky instinctively tried to push the card back, but I stopped her. Becky, I'm not giving this back, 'cause I owe you. I smiled. Back then, I just took an advance on my potential, and now I'm here to pay it off. As I turned to leave, Becky called out from behind. David, I won't meet anyone like you in this lifetime. Her voice was filled with wistful longing and regret. Without turning back, I waved, of course. This kid shines bright like the sun. Becky, goodbye for good. The others had already headed to the dinner spot. Only a younger guy was waiting for me at the exit. When he saw me coming out, he nodded towards Becky. Ex-girlfriend? I nodded, smiling. Yup, she's got that irresistible look that every guy likes. Still, someone like her you'd be hard-pressed to find a substitute for in this country. I raised an eyebrow, signaling him to speak his mind. He straightened and seriously said, David, now that you're in college, has your taste in partners changed? He gestured to himself, like me, for instance. Good family, educated by the best, got science and nature publications, promising industry, and I'm driven. Do I have the honor to be considered by you? I just smiled, saying nothing. The road ahead is long, why rush choices? If you're climbing higher, there are plenty of awesome views ahead. My name's David. He's like a hidden dragon finally catching rain, soaring like a crane today. I am going to shine, I am going to soar.